What's your most mind-boggling customer service moment? 20 years ago, my fiance and I drove to Las Vegas for the weekend. We lived near Los Angeles, so it was about a 5-hour drive. Late Monday night, on the way back to Los Angeles, we stopped at the state line to get a bite to eat. In those days, there were just the 2 casinos on either side of the highway and not the mini metropolis that is there now. The casino was almost completely empty and the casino restaurant was deserted except for us. The place had a weird airplanes and clowns theme, was way too brightly lit, and the colors were bright orange and yellow. It was hideous, like a McDonald's but without the charm. Being so empty, late at night, being at the state line, being so nauseatingly decorated, we were resigned to a meal a cut below Denny's. We slid into a plastic orange booth that might have come out of a Taco Bell. The server came over promptly. It was like he just appeared out of thin air. He handed us the menu, but announced that they had a special seafood steak, whatever, I forget, but it sounded good and it was half the cost of the highest priced item on the menu, so we went with it. The first thing to arrive was the Caesar salad, only instead of bringing out salads on plates, the waiter brought out a cart and parked it at our table. He then proceeded to handcraft the Caesar dressing right there. A little anchovy, he asked us first, mustard, and whatever the frick else, Worcestershire, lemon, garlic, capers, but it was like the Benihana of Caesar salad right there. Chop, chop, wham, bam, and it was perfect. I meant perfect. The anchovy was just strong enough, but not overpowering. Everything else was in balance. The tartness of the capers, the sour of the lemon, all working together like a gosh darn chamber orchestra. It was nothing less than amazing. Best Caesar salad I ever had, before or since. The food came pretty quickly and it was expertly prepared. It was freaking exquisite, and you know how servers in already empty restaurants are sometimes like ghosts, you just never see them. This guy was a god among waiters. He knew exactly when to show up, not too much, not too little, just at the right times. Well, the food was incredible, and as the waiter cleared the table, he suggested dessert. I always need coffee, so a little dessert sounded good, and the food had been so good, we figured how the heck could we miss it? It's a little hazy, but we ordered some sort of peaches and ice cream dessert. The waiter said he was going to need some help with this one, and he disappeared, only to return with another cart and a woman he introduced as his manager. They said to whipping up a storm on the cart. Evidently, they had to make the syrup for the peaches right there with whiskey and whatnot. They created a couple of huge fireballs that went whoosh, yeah, and the ice cream had to be done just so. It was a freaking spectacle. It was perfect. The perfect balance of warmth, a hint of alcohol, the tender juicy peaches, and the sweet ice-cold cream. Dang, naturally the coffee was outstanding as well, rich, black, and smooth. Then the bill came. You know how I said the special was half the price? The total bill with the dessert, salad, and meal for the 2 of us was less than $20. Less than $20. Best gosh darn meal I have ever had. The setting was hideous, the expectations were low, but the service was excellent, the food was amazing, and the price was downright shocking. If I recall correctly, we gave him a $20 tip too. It wasn't enough, but hey, just order over 100% and I didn't have too much money in those days. I've gone back and looked for the restaurant, but it's gone now. They've built and rebuilt the places so much, nothing's recognizable, and to be honest, I'm not sure which side of the highway we were on. I'll never forget that gosh awful decor, though. Last year, I went through the self-checkout at Kroger late one night. There were a few other people at said self-checkout, but it was far from busy. I attempted to scan an item that was on clearance, and it brings up the "wait for attended" message. I see the kid working the section talking to another coworker about 20 feet away. The hand modules they use have an ignore function, so they don't have to come over every time someone doesn't know how to use the machines. 95% of the time, the dude hits the ignore button. I know it wasn't going to scan without his approval, so I hit the call attend button. He presses the ignore again. This happens 8 times. When I finally went over to ask him for help, he bolted to the back before I could catch him. I was annoyed, so I left the self-checkout to go get in a regular line. Just so happened that a manager was walking by and asked if I was having issues. Since I was leaving self-checkout, I told her what had happened, and she was furious. Never saw that kid at Kroger again. Last weekend, I went to the beach with my friend. We had booked a hotel room with 2 queen beds. For whatever reason, there was an administrative error and the hotel forgot to reserve our room. When we get there are no rooms with 2 beds left. The front desk agent was very apologetic and offered us an extra room at no charge because duh, they fricked up until the owner of the place moseyed on in and instead said, "No, if you want 2 rooms, you're going to pay for 2 rooms," and asked us why we couldn't just sleep together in a king bed, which is not really his business, and if we wanted to share a bed, we would have booked a room with one bed instead of specifically booking a room with two. If we had known they were out of rooms, we would have gone somewhere else. At that point, he insisted on us staying in one room with a cot, which I said was BS because one of us was sleeping on a cot and it was not something we agreed to pay for. Eventually, after 2 hours of arguing, he fricked off and his son, who is the part owner and the one who suggested giving us 2 rooms for the cost of one in the first place, let us have 2 rooms. His dad is clearly in the wrong freaking business. I was at an awesome barbecue place in Fort Worth with a bunch of friends. Our server was a bit goofy. He was funny, really nice, but kind of distant. He just seemed like he didn't seem suited to waiting tables. He got our drinks and orders wrong, but it was hard to be upset. The what the heck moment wasn't bad or good, it was just weird. He had a huge red beard, and I said, "Dude, your beard is awesome." He then said, "Thanks, my neighbor has one just like it. Some people think he's my dad, but he's not my dad. I've met my dad." Then he just walked away without saying anything. My parents and I decided to try a new trendy pizza place right around the corner from my apartment one night last month. We decided to sit outside because the weather was nice and they had a big patio and a side deck. Everyone working at this place had an attitude, from the hostess who seated us to the waitress taking our orders. They made us feel like a huge inconvenience, but we were hungry and heard the pizza was good, so we tried to look past that. As soon as we are seated on the patio, the girl offers to lower the shades because the sun was setting and was directly in our line of sight. We say that would be great, and a guy comes out and lowers the blinds for us. We order our drinks and look over the menu. Not even 5 minutes later, a young guy comes to our table incredibly enraged that the blinds were lowered. In a very condescending manner, he tells us that he's going to have to raise the blinds because they trap heat in the patio, ultimately raising the patio temperature about 20 degrees. My dad politely tells him that the sun is in our eyes and that they really shouldn't offer to lower the shades if it's going to be a problem. The guy snaps. He is incredibly disrespectful toward my father and goes on a tangent assuring us that the sun would set, and even going as far as to take his sunglasses off of his head and offering them to my dad. He's young, maybe 25, and treating us like we're imbeciles, saying that our request to lower the shades would make the other customers less comfortable. Whatever, they raise the blinds and we question whether or not we'll stay to order food. We stay, our drinks arrive, and we take a few minutes to look over the menu. The waitress is nowhere to be found. We sit there in awkward silence trying to get past what had just happened. Other tables are seated, and the hostess offers to lower the shades for each table. We finish our drinks, and the waitress still hasn't returned to take our order. We contemplate leaving, but she finally shows and we order. The food came out cold, but one of the managers was walking around asking how everything was. We told him about the sunglasses prick, and he was furious. I haven't seen the guy working there since. I used to be a hostess in a pizzeria chain that is based out of Chicago. I came to work in one in New York. And I'll never forget, this family of 8 gave me, the hostess, a $25 tip on a $50 bill, all because they hated their waitress and I was the one that kept refilling their drinks. Waitress was beyond super annoyed, but the manager said to her, "Should have been paying more attention. The tip is hers." Best day ever. I am from New Hampshire. When I was going to college in Florida, I had a gas station cashier refuse to sell me cigarettes because I showed her my identification and she did not believe that New Hampshire was a state. I was out to dinner with my family. We sit down, order drinks, and so far everything is going nicely. The waitress comes and we order. When it gets to my mom, she orders what she wants, and the waitress responds with, "If you're on a diet, you don't want that." My mom had said nothing whatsoever about being on a diet. She is slightly overweight, and I mean very slightly. She is self-conscious, and it's difficult even to get her to come out to eat with us. My mom simply said, "I'm not on a diet," with a cold stare. The waitress turned red in the face and walked off to place our orders. There's a Subway that recently opened right across the street from my house. I started eating $5 footlongs every day. It was glorious. Not only was it extremely convenient, but the service was better than any Subway I'd ever been to by far. The sandwiches were made great, and the girls were talkative and flirty. There was one downside. The guy who worked most nights was a short, surly bastard who was always being an a-hole or trying to intimidate you, which was pretty easy due to his bulk and full-sleeve tattoos, those teardrop tattoos, which, if I'm not mistaken, are prison tattoos. Every time I went in there, I'd say, "Hey, how's it going?" He would answer with a grunt or just ask, "What sandwich do you want?" I'd get through my order, but he threw the meat and veggies around all willy-nilly, creating the most disheveled, sad-looking sandwiches I've ever seen. After going in there a few times with this experience, me and a girlfriend of mine go in one night. I go through the same routine. My friend asks a question about the gluten-free sandwiches, and the dude drops his mop to the ground. He had started mopping right after my sandwich was made without asking the girl if she wanted anything, and says, "Are you serious? Can't you see the picture?" and gestures towards a picture of a gluten-free sandwich. My friend is shocked and says something like, "You know what? Frick you, man, you're a prick." and storms out. I say, wow, great customer service, man. He answers, what? You asked a question and I answered it. He was doing the come at me bro stance and had fury in his eyes as if I just insulted his entire immediate and extended family. A-hole. Went to a steakhouse in San Francisco. Ordered steak, got a butter knife, called the waitress over and asked for a steak knife. She returns with a new butter knife, only with a wooden handle. I say, sorry, what I'm looking for is a steak knife, something that cuts meat. She says, that will cut meat. I run the knife over my hand a few times while saying, no, you don't understand. I'm eating meat. This doesn't cut meat. She says, that's a steak knife, though. I say, I'm not sure what to tell you. I want a knife that can penetrate and slice meat. She says, are you threatening me? I had already handed her the steak knife, so I was sitting there with my girlfriend empty-handed. I say, what? She says, you're very aggressive in asking me for a knife to stab and cut with. I give her the WTF look. My girlfriend laughs. I say, no, you're not a steak, so you have nothing to worry about. Look, just give me what you have and I'll deal with it. She says, I don't think it's safe to give you a knife. I'm sorry, and walks off. WTF, 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 and my girlfriend was laughing her ass out. As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts, reactions, and of course your own wild stories in the comments, and here's another video YouTube thinks you'll love.